The Tolkien Road, episode 168, concerning Peter Jackson's The Battle of the Five Armies. Welcome into the Tolkien Road, everybody. John here. Greta.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm terrific. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
Episode 168, concerning Peter Jackson's The Battle of the Five Armies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. This is, it's all coming to an end. Our Hobbit journey is coming to an end.
Unbelievable.
So, we are honored once again to be joined by Sharon. Sharon, who joined us for our discussion of the Desolation of Smaug.
Yes. Yeah.
And told us all kinds of cool stories about her adventures in Hobbiton.
Mm-hmm.
And she is joining us again for our final discussion on Peter Jackson's Hobbit movies. So,
all the way from Adelaide.
That's right.
Australia. Welcome.
How are you?
Hi.
Hey.
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
Welcome.
Yeah. It's great to have you back.
Yeah.
It's good to be here. Thoroughly enjoyed it last time.
Yeah,
It was a
so
lot
did
of fun.
we. Yeah, it was. I love that we're speaking with someone literally on the other side of the world.
It is cool.
In two totally different time zones. It's funny looking at you through Skype and seeing the sun shine coming in through your windows, and here it's dark. So it's kind of surreal
And it was
very cool.
Vice versa last time.
That's right, it was.
That's right, yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah, this is very cool.
Yeah, you were
Very
like,
cool.
it was like in the middle of the night for you last time. I
you
think
were
it
a
was.
trooper.
You were.
Yeah, I think I would have pieced out way before you did. So I'm impressed with your stamina.
I didn't go to work the next day.
Good for you. Good for you.
Showbiz. What can you do? You know.
You know.
All right. Well, hey, before we dive into our discussion of the movie, special thanks to our newest patrons, Connor Fogarty and David Bates. Thank you, Connor, and thank you,
awesome.
David, for recently pledging your support to the Tolkien Road over on Patreon, patreon.com/Tolkien Road. Don't forget to pledge $1 or more per episode, and you can set a monthly limit when you do it if you're afraid that we're going to release 20 episodes at one time or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to either.
Sure. Yeah. You can do whatever you want.
You can just be as
Sky's the
you can
limit.
just be as generous as you want to be.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Well, let's just not waste any time and let's do this.
That's what I'm
let's
saying.
talk about Battle of the Five Armies, because you and I watched it 2 nights ago, and we were originally going to record with Sharon last night, and then that didn't work out, and so we've been like wanting to talk, and then one of us goes to say something, the other one's like, "Don't say anything. Save it for the podcast. Save it for the podcast."
I hope you've been writing it down.
Well,
No.
I did. I wrote my notes down, so to kind of go through scene by scene. But it's if there's something we didn't talk about, Sharon, that's why we have you here, right?
That's right.
To remind us. So, and you have seen the extended versions of the Hobbit films, which we have not seen.
Right.
We've seen. Yeah. I own the extended versions of the Lord of the Rings films, but I have not yet purchased. What kind of Tolkien fan am I?
I was just thinking the exact same thing.
I know.
I'm a little embarrassed right now. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Well,
this is a little inexcusable.
Well, I'll.
Sure is.
Thanks, Sharon.
They're ganging up on me.
Do you feel outnumbered here? Sorry about that. Not really.
I'll shut this podcast down if you guys aren't nice to me. Okay, I will just go.
It's okay, Sharon. I know how to start it back up again.
I will put you both on mute, and I'll just talk the whole time. That's how we'll do it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sure that would be thrilling.
So, Battle of the Five Armies.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it all starts off, I think, with Smaug's big splash, right?
Yeah.
Smaug's
I guess
big
that's
splash.
one way to put it. Yeah. Well, but he destroys Lake Town before he belly flops.
Right.
That's it. Yeah. Not belly dive. Belly flops. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, where he comes in and torches.
Yeah.
Lake Town.
Oh, by the way, for those of you who are wondering what the screeching sound is in the background, Sharon has an eagle baby there in the background. So
he thinks he's an eagle. There he is. I think I'm going to have to move him.
Well, it's up to you. I was just letting people know that wasn't that we weren't hearing things. It was an actual creature making that noise. So
yes, it was. Yes, there's no Nazgul in here.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Set all their minds at ease.
We'll
I think
it does not bother me one bit. So
let me know.
No, it does not bother me one bit.
Me neither.
Honestly,
I'd forgotten about it until you mentioned it.
Yeah. So it makes me feel, it makes this feel more natural, which is very Tolkien. Tolkien.
Yes.
That's Tolkien-esque.
Exactly.
That's the spirit of Tolkien.
Yeah.
So,
nature.
Absolutely.
In all its forms. Yeah.
So yes,
you might change your mind when he corrects a fit, but other than that.
So Smaug's big splash. So I don't know. So we'll go around like we do. We did on the last episode. Kind of everybody gets a chance to talk about. We'll go maybe chronologically through the movie, and everybody gets a chance to talk about their thoughts on particular scenes. So Sharon, why don't you start us off? And talking about that opening scene in Lake Town. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I've got it on here just to remind me as we go through. But the not that I don't watch it constantly, but it sort of blurs together. The extent, because I'm watching the extended, it opens with the master trying to get himself out of Lake Town, and then the destruction as he swoops in over it, which I think is an amazing scene. As Smaug comes in and the various frantic efforts of people to get around, and then of course there's the big battle with Bard, which I was only thinking this morning because I've reread The Hobbit, as I mentioned, the book between this and the last podcast, and it's just come very clear that Peter Jackson made good use of what I'm going to call the asides, the little bits, the tidbits of information that were fed to put some perspective on how things happened. And if you took them out of the book, the book would flow along quite nicely. There's no doubt about it. But Bard is portrayed differently within the book than he is within the movie. But that battle and the inclusion of his son and that desperation about making sure that the dragon dies, and I think Smaug's death is quite spectacular.
Totally
rising right up above and in that frantic clawing for air and clawing for life, and then the ultimate death fall, which looked like hundreds of kilometres from the way it's shot. And then, of course, the massive splash, ironically and deservedly, across the master's boat. So I think that, having reread the book, the characters are far much more explored in the movies, which I think is awesome, because I think you get a better sense of what the true character of those people really is. But I really would love to have seen Benedict Cumberbatch doing the actions for the dying Smaug, because it was all based on him in a blue suit, but I think it was spectacularly done. It certainly portrayed the desperation of the Lake Town folk and the desperation of
the destruction
Bard and Bane to kill the dragon and to save the people.
You're right. Like, I hadn't thought of that, Sharon. That's his son is actually isn't named in The Hobbit, but he is. No. But he is. We know he had a son.
Yes.
Yeah, from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
From the end of it, and his name was Bane. That's right. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, interesting. Does he ever call him Bane in Peter Jackson's movie?
I think so. Yes. As he comes up the stairs with the black arrow into the bell tower, and he says, "Bane, you were supposed to go. You're supposed to leave." So,
wow.
Yeah.
I had not thought of that. Interesting.
Very good.
Yeah, nice little connection there.
Yeah, totally.
It's really it's really interesting. Like, one of the big picture questions I wrote down to talk about, now that we're at the end of, we've now, this is our sixth and final review of a Peter Jackson movie on the podcast. And, so one of the things I wanted to talk about overall was, was Jackson justified in the various liberties he took in different aspects of the story, and how do we even go about thinking about that, right? Because whenever you adapt a movie, whenever you adapt a story that exists already into a film, you have to make editorial choices. You have to do things. There's no such thing as a perfect like perfectly one for one storytelling. It's impossible if you really think about it. And if you tried to do it, it would almost be a worse film than otherwise. So there's obviously, I think of this in the Hobbit movies so far, there have definitely been a lot of just the act of taking it from one book into 3 films. There's obviously a lot of stuff added in, and we talked a lot about some of that on the Desolation of Smaug, but this one itself has a lot of stuff that's not in the books.
Exactly.
So, it'll be interesting to kind of develop that more as we continue on. I mean, for me, I thought the Smaug, I really liked the opening of this film. I thought, Smaug, like I said in the last episode, is just one of the ultimate best things about the story, and they do really well with the characterization of Smaug in the movie, in the movies, and then that the dramatic scene of Bard,
with his son,
with the black arrow, killing Smaug. It's great. So speaking of birds.
I'm just going to move him.
No. It's all good. I was not. That was not a hint to that. But I actually, Greta can see here. I wrote down. Where is it?
Down there.
Oh yeah, here we go. Birds.
Yeah.
I wrote birds! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! One of the things that I was a little disappointed by was the thrush and the raven do not play a very big role in the film. And the thrush, of course, showed up at the end of towards the end of Desolation of Smaug, but in the book, the thrush actually shows up and tells Bard
where to shoot
the arrow.
Smaug, right?
Yeah. And I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do that in the film.
I know.
He also goes and gets the old raven, Roak. So he goes and gets the old raven, brings him back to the dwarves as well. So there's that little essence. I mean, you get a hint of it, but it's really not as big as it could have been. I think.
Right. And as we were watching that, when we were watching it, I remember asking myself, well, how did Bard even know we were watching the movie, how did Bard even know where to shoot Smaug? And then I was like, the bird told him, but that's not in the movie. That's he just
happens to see
it,
spot,
but that's just luck of the draw. I mean, what are the chances?
It might not be in the theatrical version.
It's in the extended version.
The extended, during the discussions with the dwarves, I think Bane says then you'd know that Gideon hit Smaug and loosened a scale under his left wing, and Dwalin says that's just a folk story.
Oh,
okay. So that's in the extended.
So it was something to be, I guess, it was hinted at in that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of the proper way, if you like.
Yeah.
I remember last time on our last episode with Sharon, it was like every time I came up with something, Sharon was like, "Oh yeah, that's in the extended edition," and I was like, "I should have watched the extended edition." It's all good. So the thrush does the thrush show up at all in the extended edition of Battle of the Five Armies? And
I think there's a
whisper
thing where he doesn't do the whisper thing. No,
Okay.
he doesn't do that. But he does show up, and I remember last time thinking, oh, hang on, because every time I watch it, I see something new.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, I didn't notice that before, but there is little tales of him doing little snippets of him doing things, like 1 or 2, nothing dramatic, and certainly not as big as his part was in the book.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know that he shows up during the battle, but he doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
He just comes and sits
He's a
on the
thrush,
wall.
man. What else do you want?
I want him to talk.
I want to hear a little thrush voice.
I want his secret language.
I love that aspect of the book with the thrushes being like could converse with the men of Dale and Lake Town, and then the ravens, had a language with the dwarves, and so I got to say, not having that as much, in this film was a letdown for me.
Yeah.
Because I think to me, The Hobbit one of its charms is it does have a little bit more of that fairy tale-ish quality to it. And Tolkien even and on fairy stories, he lists out like the ability of like people to be able to what does he say? I'm not going to get the quote exactly right, but basically he says like he alludes to the idea of like people being able to talk to animals, and that's one of his favorite things about fairy tales. Just the idea of like that a human being could converse with, you've got your bird right there and like literally being able to understand what he's saying to you, right? And we've got our cats, right? And kind of like we joke about what they're saying to us, but how cool would it be to actually like know, what your pet is saying to you, right? To be able to speak with the animals. So anyway, I've droned on about that for long enough. What do you think about the scene, Greta?
Yeah, I'm gonna. It was very well done, like no doubt. The cinematography and just the perspectives and the way it was all shot, I thought was amazing. Feast for the eyes. But I'm the kind of person that I like a slow build up when it comes to a movie. I prefer to kind of have it start a little slow and then, get to the excitement, not super slow, but, don't just throw me in. And I felt like I was just thrown in at the opening. And this was my first time seeing the third. I'd seen the first two once before we watched them to review them for the podcast. But this was my first time seeing this movie. And I wish that the second movie had ended where this one began. Mm-hmm. That's what I would have preferred. I guess I would have liked to have seen this one open with more of just the dwarves and the mountain, and then I guess I would have liked for it to start kind of maybe have Smaug die at some point, but I don't know what I'm trying to say. It was just too much too soon for me.
Yeah,
I would have liked a slower build up, and I think I take that back. I would have liked to have seen Smaug die at the end of the second movie.
Oh, okay.
And then I would have liked this one to start just a little bit later.
Yeah,
that's just my 2
Yeah,
cents.
it was definitely an interesting choice to save this for the beginning. I remember thinking that when I saw Desolation of Smaug in the theater, and like, so we're gonna see the Battle of Lake Town at the beginning of the last movie. Mm-hmm. It did seem like an odd choice. I mean, I think it's fine. It was kind of a cliffhanger, especially if you didn't already know the story. Even if you did know the story, you're like, well, what is he gonna do something special with Smaug? Is Smaug gonna survive and or be in the movie longer or something like that in the next one? But
yeah, I see. I mean, I understand why they did it. Yeah. It was just not my preference.
What did y'all think of the master biting the dust here? Like dying because he doesn't actually die in the book. There's an allusion to him at the very end being like he ran off and with a bunch of money or something like that, and there was a new master of Lake Town. But he dies here in this scene. So, what do you think? I mean, why do you think Jackson made that choice? I mean, to kill him off, and then you've got Albert instead.
It's the editorial choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
All of those things about when do you finish the second movie to begin the third, and I think the end of the second movie was perfect because it was a cliffhanger, in that Bilbo hanging onto that rock going, "What have we done?" is just, that makes you think, well, yeah, look what you've done.
Right.
You've done all in the name of a quest for gold, for goodness sake. And then the master's quest for gold for getting out of Lake Town was the thing there. And I guess that sort of captures what was said in the book about, he nicked off with, and there was a line, halfway down the Anduin with all our money. Mm-hmm. That's alluded to, and by crushing him, I think you just get rid of that, the whole thing about how Smaug's body was never gone to again. Mm-hmm. Like the Lake Town was, and in the book it was rebuilt.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, yeah. I think it's an editorial choice, and it's a bit like, the end of Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen, and you're hungry for more, so why wouldn't you make it a bit of a cliffhanger and make people think?
Yeah, yeah. I like to me, it's an interesting thing with the Master dying early, but then they keep Albert, who is that's his name, right? Alfred. Yes.
Alfred Lickspiel.
Alfred's kind of a hybrid of the Master and Wormtongue from the Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a completely made up character, I believe. Like he's like Tauriel, right? Where he's not a Tolkien character, not in the books. But so I a little bit, again, I question. I'm like, I'm not trying to just be like a naysayer because I'm like, it has to be just like the book. We already established that like that's not really possible, and you have to make choices. But like, why kill off the Master, and who could have maybe played that role, right, of the despicable sort of character, right? And he does in the book, right? He does the things that Alfred does with Bard, right, where he's like, oh, let me be like, now that I see that I'm gonna look really bad, let me kind of nuzzle up to you and and make myself look good by like clinging to your coattails, right, so that they don't all kill me,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But he chooses Alfred and to be that person in the movie instead, just kills off the Master. So, and it's just interesting to me, and like, why that choice was made overall, and and I feel like when I don't understand it, it bothers me. I guess all I'm saying is it bothers me a little bit when I don't understand it, because I'm like, well, Tolkien did it one way, why couldn't you have kind of? I understand like you can't do it exactly like, but why the big deviation? I mean, it's a pretty big deviation. So anyway,
yeah. Especially when there was already a character in the book that played that role,
mm-hmm.
right? And you just replaced him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe because Alfred was such a despicable little character. He had to survive to be the foil for the true of Bard. So the trueness and, because in the book, Bard becomes, he is answerable to the Master
mm-hmm.
in the book, and in the movie he becomes Bard's answerable to the Master, but in the movie Alfred is answerable to Bard in some ways, and becomes the foil for the right and wrong of what the world is like after a major trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Bard's, common sense and down the line and clear thinking and all of those sorts of things are reflected in the blind greed and nastiness that is Alfred. So, I don't know why it went that way, but maybe Stephen Fry wasn't available for the last movie.
Yeah, that could be.
Maybe they just couldn't get him.
That could be.
Yeah. So. Let's see here. Kind of moving along. We have, I guess really the next big scene, and correct me if I jump over something here, but I guess where we go from there is back to the dwarves, right? So, we return up to Erebor, to the Lonely Mountain, and we start to kind of get the feeling. We're introduced to the idea that there's this dragon sickness that's taking over Thorin, and so what did y'all? First of all, did I skip anything? And second of all, if not, what did you all think of how that was done? The dragon sickness.
Oh, the dragon! I thought that was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
They dragged it out more, I think,
mm-hmm.
added to it. Than what was in the book. But the way Thorin was portrayed, I thought was perfect. I mean, he looked horrible. He sounded horrible. How the dwarves just didn't revolt and get rid of him, that shows tremendous self-control on their part.
No, it's loyalty and family and all of those things,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that too, for sure. But no, I thought it was great. I can't really find any fault with how Thorin was portrayed. How about you, John?
No, I mean, that's, I think it's interesting because I probably tend to be a little bit more of the I probably tend to fall more on the side of like, well, justify that from the book. And obviously it's a thing that's mentioned in the book, but it becomes a really big theme of the movie.
Yeah,
right?
It does.
And I feel like reading The Hobbit again, having just read that section of The Hobbit again recently, like there's definitely, there's definitely like indications that, Thorin is like letting all the money, all the gold and everything get to his head. Right. But it's like almost this like magic dragon sickness. And I wonder how much of that is like editorialized, like a lot of the editorializing, I think, of some of the like books that have been written about the stories and like, people kind of making their own kind of like like analyzing the stories and this kind of thing. And then Jackson seems to bring a lot of that into the story. Again, I don't have a problem with the notion of like, that Thorin was like becoming like Smaug and, the way he was like hoarding this treasure for himself. But some of it with like the more intense, like psychological, like mental sorts of things, it was a little bit like, yeah, maybe that takes a little further than Tolkien had intended, but it's not really a like sharp criticism. It's just a, something I was more thinking about as I was watching it, like how far are they taking it farther than Tolkien, than Tolkien intended here. So anyway, that's my critical reaction to that part of it.
Yeah.
I think across the board that it was taken more than Tolkien intended.
Yeah.
Pretty much because it was basically glossed over in some ways, in that, you were aware that Thorin wanted that gold and he wasn't letting anyone have it. But the reasons and the thinking behind it are explored, I think, more in Peter Jackson's editions, because, well, you've taken one book and made it 3 movies first.
Right.
Secondly, you're going to explore these characters because you're exploring. You've got the opportunity to explore them in a film when you don't have them in a book. And remembering that this was essentially a children's story, they're not going to go into the madness of Thorin in a children's book and explore why he was such a meanie and why people didn't just smack him in the head and run away,
Right.
So I think that, again, editorial choice, and it's good because you can see the pain later on with the other dwarves when Thorin makes choices around Bilbo and fighting and all of those things, and you can see them struggling with their loyalty and their love of what he is to them, particularly Dwalin, and to see that it is affecting them in such a big way, and because they're not affected by the dragon sickness, and they don't know how to cope with Thorin being affected by it, they don't understand it. And that whole scene with I'm not my grandfather, very very important, because he's got to talk himself out of that. Fortunately, he does, but
eventually.
Yeah, one of the things I come back to like is the realization that like The Hobbit, I think a lot of people, because I think even more so than the Lord of the Rings movies, like there was a lot of Tolkien fans that criticized the Hobbit movies. And I mean, I know people who have like refused to see them. And I think one thing that I come back to is that, we're actually going to be exploring this on a future episode, but Tolkien around 1960 actually sat down and began rewriting The Hobbit as if it were in the style of Lord of the Rings, right? Now he only got about 2 or 3 chapters in, but you wonder like how much longer The Hobbit would have been and how much more he would have gotten into questions like dragon sickness, and we'll never know, unfortunately. But it does it does at least lend a thought to that there is some justification to maybe make this story a little more epic than what you get in the book. There is a way to see it that way. Now I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail over saying that, but from the true believers. So
comes back to something I wrote to you the other day. I read a few comments after a couple on your podcast there, and I thought, and got a little bit Aussie hot-blooded about it. And but then I thought, well, look, I have my opinion. Everyone has an opinion, and you're entitled to one as well. Strangely enough, in this whole world. But what people can't say is you're wrong, because we don't know. The only person who really knows is Tolkien himself.
Right.
And if he attempted to write it again in the style of Lord of the Rings, I think he would have found that completely difficult, because it was a considerable number of years on from when he'd written it originally. And to try and make it into the epic of Lord of the Rings, which it was, and let's face it, apparently it was like almost 3 times as long as it ended up being, that would have been quite a struggle for him. He would have had to have gone through and pick through and try and draw out every little nuance. And that's pretty much what Peter Jackson's done. He's taken folklore of other writings of Tolkien and put it into The Hobbit to give it perspective. The Dol Guldur scene, which we'll talk about, and all of those sorts of little bits and pieces about, how Thrain and Thror and all of those deaths and that. And yes, there is a little bit of makeup in it. Azog was not killed by Thorin and all of those sorts of things. Those were all made up, but maybe they might have ended that way. We don't know.
Right.
And I think that it's important that when people write a comment is to say, I don't agree with you, I see it this way, not you're wrong.
Right. Exactly.
And, because my understanding is different from yours and Greta's and the world's, and yours is the same. So,
yeah. Well, and at least to say like, well, if you disagree strongly, like to say like, well, and here's why, like, here's the reason why, and so you can get kind of into those deeper sorts of conversations, and at least you still might not come to an agreement, but you at least understand like why the disagreement exists. You can come to some kind of principled thing, because sometimes when I'm thinking about controversial things, I'm like, okay, on one end of the spectrum you have this extreme notion, and then on the other hand you have this extreme notion. So Peter Jackson could have made a movie called The Hobbit, and it had nothing to do, and would have had nothing to do with any of it. Or he could have made a movie of The Hobbit, and it would have been exactly like as close to like literal trying to do the story as possible, right? And and somewhere in there is how you turn a book into a film or 3 films. So, and again, yeah, we keep coming back to that question, because I think that's the most lasting question for these films is like, did Peter Jackson, go too far, or did he just do a good adaptation? So, yeah. Anyway, back to the story, back to the actual movie.
Yeah. This is what happens when I'm awake, folks.
Well, something that occurred to me while we were talking about Thorin's dragon sickness was, one of the reasons Jackson may have made the choice he did to drag that out and make it more of a theme is, once Smaug is gone, there's no central villain until the orcs show up, really. I mean, you have you have Alfred. I mean, he's just kind of a skeezy little pain in the butt. Like, he's not, he can't do anything. Like, he's not a true villain.
He's just kind of like, you just kind of feel sorry for him.
He's kind of a bad guy. Yeah, he's
like
a pathetic
he's
bad
kind of like
guy.
He's kind of like Gollum or Wormtongue.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah. So in order to carry the movie, really, I mean, you need some kind of villain, some kind of good versus evil conflict. And that could have been the reason he kind of took the dragon sickness a little further. Yeah. Was to make Thorin that,
good point.
That villain.
I realized that we skipped over something, though. It's the Dol Guldur scene early in the movie.
Yeah, but that's a totally different front. I'm saying you need a villain on both fronts.
Oh no, I wasn't. Yeah. I wasn't arguing with you about that. I was.
You were just saying. Okay, I thought you were saying that we already had a villain.
I think we skipped over it in terms of chronologically.
It's sort of. We're just getting the remaining dwarves to the mountain. I've gone back so that I can make sure that I'm getting in the right order.
Right.
Because this gets a bit blurry, I've got to say. Because Dol Guldur flits in and out right now.
Yeah.
So this is the whole Tauriel and Keely scene that probably offends most people. But I think it's nice to have a love interest in any movie.
What? Just like you need a villain, you need some romance. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely makes Keely's death more poignant, you know.
Yes.
You know, at the end of the film.
He just wants to be part of our conversation.
I got him going when I talk.
He likes Tauriel. He thinks he's all right.
I can't blame him for that. I think I set that bird off when I said like the bird's got the short shrift in this movie. He's like that's what it's all about, right?
He's like, you don't even know.
Preach it.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, but Dol Guldur, what did y'all think about that scene there with the White Council rescuing?
I thought that was
Gandalf.
Later. Was that not later? I thought that was during the battle.
Okay, well, we can come back to it.
Okay.
What's the next thing?
Are we going to talk about Keely and Tauriel?
Well, we can. Yeah. Okay, let me write it down here.
Well, you already have it there.
I've been outvoted. All right, Dol Guldur. There we go.
No, you have it too early. I think.
So Keely and Tauriel is all tied up with the people getting to land and and finding shelter and Alfred being a jerk and all of that. That's sort of what's happening on my TV at the moment. So that farewell was, she'd saved his life and this was the goodbye, and he sort of made a gesture, and there's nothing really said but a lot alluded to, and I think that's lovely. It's it's not in the book, but neither's his love triangle and Legolas isn't in the book either. But no one's complaining about Orlando Bloom.
No, we established that last episode. Yeah,
we sure did. So, I think it's lovely. And this scene really establishes Bard as the captain of leading the force into the next step of what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah. I really like Bard's portrayal. I have to say that.
I do.
He's
what's his name?
excellent.
Is it Luke Evans?
Yes,
Is that his name?
Luke Evans.
I think he did a great job as
Not
Bard.
too shabby either.
Yes. True story.
So yeah, I thought Bard was Bard was one of my favorite characters he is in the story and then in the films as well. So I thought Luke Evans did a good job.
What was the conflict like with the Keely and Tauriel? What was like he wanted her to come with him to the mountain, and Legolas didn't wanted her to stay with him.
Right.
Okay.
Well, he sort of turned up in the middle of Tauriel and Keely doing their little doggy doe eyes,
right?
And she sort of says, "Oh, Lord Legolas is here, holy crap," sort of thing. And he says, but he gets a sense then that she is indeed interested in Keely. And but then he says, I'm going. That's when Lindia turns up, and Lindia? No, not Lindia. Whoever it was from Thranduil's kingdom.
Oh yeah.
To say, you've got to go back. You've got
Right.
to go back, and Tauriel's not welcome. And Legolas makes his intentions clear when he says, "Well, if she's not, I'm not either."
Why? Why was she not welcome?
It was from the last movie when she leaves against Thranduil's orders.
That's right. Yeah.
And help the dwarves.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. She helped the dwarves.
And then Legolas left, but he's the king's son, so he's going to get pardoned.
Right.
But he's made his feelings to Tauriel quite clear by saying, "Well, she's not allowed back. I'm not going."
Right.
So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then he's off to go and look at
to scout the orcs, right?
No,
Isn't that where they go?
He's off to go north. Gundabad. He's off to Gundabad.
Yeah. Isn't that where the orcs were coming from, though?
Exactly.
That's where they were.
The stronghold in the north.
That's where they thought they were coming from.
Okay. Were they not?
Yeah.
That's not where they were mustering?
There's one set from there, and there's one that's Bog's Loch coming from.
Oh, got it. Okay.
It's confusing because in the book they do come from the one area.
Yes.
I had a hard time following several things in this movie.
You got to remember Azog's crew. Azog's crew are the fictional one here.
Right.
Got it. Yes.
So, yeah.
Bolg is actually so Bolg is Azog's son.
He's the White Orc.
Yes.
No, Azog is the White Orc, and then
right.
And I mean Bolg, I guess, is not quite as white as like Azog.
One is really
the
white,
pasty white one.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
I do agree with you, Greta. I mean, I feel like there was so much different from the book that it was confusing at times.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to think of like, okay, where are we with respect to the book and everything, it can get a little confusing at times. And we're gonna have a really good discussion when we watch the animated Hobbit here soon.
Okay.
Because we're gonna watch that for the next episode and discuss that. And it's like,
I've got to get hold of it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, you've never seen the animated Hobbit? Oh man, it's been a long time since I've seen it. But it's it's like the different. It's got a whole host of other things to talk about. I'll just put it that way. So I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Cliffhanger teaser.
But yeah, so are we ready to talk about Dol Guldur now?
I still think it's later in the movie.
It wasn't that late in the movie.
I thought it was during the battle.
Because Gandalf had to escape and get to the Lonely Mountain.
That's true. You're right. Okay. I stand corrected. Yep. Okay, let's talk about Dol Guldur. Dol Guldur.
Are we good?
Are you good, Sharon?
Yeah.
You want to talk about Dol Guldur?
Talk about Dol Guldur. I love that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dol Guldur. So Dol Guldur, this is probably one of those threads throughout that maybe people have complained about, but again, like Dol Guldur, like we know
that's where Gandalf was.
That's where Gandalf was for much of the Hobbit, right? He was that they had decided to attack Dol Guldur, right? Now, so I'm good with him being there, right? I'm good with him hanging out there. I'm good with Elrond and Radagast and Sauron. I thought it was kind of cool to see Saruman like kind of kick some butt in a good guy form, even though he's he obviously turns out to be a bad guy in Lord of the Rings. He's corrupted, right? But before that, he was good, right? Like Gandalf looked up to him before, right? Like Gandalf was like good. Saruman's here, and so I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, was that like Christopher Lee's last film role, maybe?
I think it might have been.
And he was like in his 90s.
And it was shot in. He was actually in London, and did it all on a blue screen.
Wow.
Oh no way. That's cool.
Yeah, it was a bit sad when you find that out. Because he couldn't travel, but he wanted so desperately to be part of it. Oh
yeah.
And Peter Jackson obviously wanted him there.
Yeah.
So they did the it was done in London.
Wow.
Do a live look
That's
up
awesome
here.
that they made it happen.
I think that like the effects on Galadriel went overboard for me.
That was a bit much for
me.
Like
she went into the tempted by the ring mode, right? Which she was in the Fellowship of the Ring, and And I get.
Well, I think she went beyond tempted by the ring.
Well, I'm making the comparison in terms of the in terms of the visual effects, and I like Galadriel, no doubt, like very very powerful. Like she's been around since the first age. She was in Valinor, right? Like she. Yes. She is even more ancient than Elrond is, right?
Yep.
And she is of the race of the Noldor and all this good stuff. But I just don't know if she has does she have the full on beast mode? I don't know. Like, can she go into the beast mode in Tolkien's books?
I think we're saying if there's if this rendition's anything to go by, that she can. Yeah. She can whoop your ass real good. So
no, but my question is like if. Like, is it in Tolkien's actual books? Because like that's where I start to have a problem, right? It's like,
he's deep breathing over here.
Is Tolkien was that Tolkien's intent for this character? That And now here's the thought, but here's the thought that crossed my mind to actually say that Peter Jackson maybe didn't get this wrong, because she did have one of the rings of power, right?
Yeah.
She had one of the rings of power, and I realized that as I was kind of like squirming as I was watching her go into beast mode. I was like, but wait a minute, she does have one of the rings of power, so maybe.
Regardless, it's still very uncomfortable to watch.
Well,
just my 2 cents.
Scary.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I think there's woman power.
That was definitely awesome. Girl power. There was some girl power there for sure. Yeah. But it made me a tad bit uncomfortable. But she wasn't like. What do we know about the White Council? Do we know much of anything about who was actually there?
So
there are some writings of it, and I think I have read them, but I couldn't tell you where I read them.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, Sharon. I know that I think that all of the I think I've read that all of the wizards were there. So even the ones that we don't know anything about, the 2 blue wizards,
okay,
that they may have taken part in it. And I do think it's canonical that Elrond and Galadriel were there as well.
Okay, that was my main question. Yeah,
but I'd have to go back.
Also has the 3rd ring of power too. So
yes,
because he got that given to him.
The ones who have the rings of power should probably the elf rings of power at least should be there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm trying to find the date of what was Christopher Lee's last film. Let's see here. It was filmography, man. All right.
That's an impressive filmography.
Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Well, it was one of the last. His last one. It was the last one he appeared in.
Yeah.
His voice was in 3 other films, but it was the last one he appeared in. So there you go.
Yeah. Very cool.
Good send off for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, any more thoughts about Dol Guldur? About that scene?
No. I love it. I think it's a fantastic scene. I think that, especially if you watch the extended version.
Oh.
And a little bit more in it. But I think it also gives us, I think I said last time, that insight into Gandalf. This is their first inkling that Saruman might be going to go bad because of what he says. Leave Sauron to me.
Leave Sauron to me, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then if we go back to the one of the previous movies where they're in Rivendell and Gandalf says, "No, I don't believe I'm accountable to anyone as well." And Elrond says, "Well, it's not me that you have to be accountable to." And Saruman says something like, "You've been busy, my friend." And Gandalf's face goes, "Oh, crap." You can see him go, "Oh man," and at that point you think, yeah, you're onto him already. This is 60 years before Lord of the Rings and you're already onto him.
Right.
So,
yeah,
60 plus years before Lord of the Rings. So it's I think it's a nice little hint into the future, if nothing else, and some very nice fight scenes.
Yeah,
that's true.
Great
Yeah, I do love some good wizard battles. I'll tell you that. That was a good wizard battle for sure.
Well, these movies are not short on action, that's for sure. And like big battle scenes, epic battle scenes, choreographed, quasi martial arts kind of bow staff fighting and all that good stuff. So, it's good stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Let's see here. I feel like I'm skipping over a lot, but because the battle is so long, like the battle takes up so much of the movie. We got Thranduil. So Thranduil, I felt like was a little different in the movie than he is in the book. He does he's really unlikable in the movies.
He's very unlikable in the movies. Yeah,
not quite so much in the books.
I didn't love him in the books, but I didn't dislike him either. Like I was more ambivalent about him in the books.
I think that's perpetuating that whole dwarf elf thing.
Yeah,
I think that's just pushing that agenda.
Yeah,
of the antagonism between the dwarves and the elves.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And he's certainly a lot more regal, I think, in the films than he is portrayed in the book, because we get a little bit more of him.
Yes.
Certainly very self-assured and very much self-righteous about the way things are happening, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Um,
And then isn't it shortly thereafter? It's before the battle that Bilbo. Forgive me if I'm jumping ahead too much, but one scene I thought they got really right that I really liked was Bilbo's escape with the Arkenstone to the enemy or to the camp.
Right.
In the Dale.
To Bard and
Thranduil, to Bard and Thranduil.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of his, and I know it's not a ton in the book, but I would have liked to see more of his reunion with Gandalf.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was like no conversation between them in the movie that I remember. Not that there was a lot in the book, but there was just like a smirk from Bilbo, and I was like, you haven't seen him in forever. You probably thought he was dead. Like, I don't know. I just would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a happy reunion.
Nice reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
personally, especially given just the high stress of the situation, you would have think Bilbo would have just been like, "Oh, thank God, it's Gandalf. Oh, where have you been? We really need you." And instead, he just kind of smiles at him. And I'm like, really? You got to be happier than that to see
just
him.
getting a smirk. That's all you're giving him.
Yeah.
Just a smirk.
I was like, here he is showing up again to save you, and you know, I don't. Maybe he's just gotten used to it by now. I don't know.
I think my take was he was so focused on what he had to do that he just didn't.
Yeah.
It was kind of lost on him maybe.
It was sort of like, of course you are.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, battle. Let's talk about the battle. I mean, a pretty epic battle. I thought it was, very enjoyable. I
thought it was too long.
Too long?
I was going to say it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Well, the extended version then, Greta, you're going to be really in for a treat.
I'll move that to the bottom of my bucket list.
I do think, I really enjoyed, when we went through the chapter, actually, this is the first time I've read The Hobbit many times before, when I went through and, did the order of battle and, said, okay, this, the goblins came around the Lonely Mountain from the east and attacked, and you had the two spurs, and then I really liked, going through that and understanding how Tolkien envisioned the battle unfolding, and and you actually and they actually planned out, they cooperated, the dwarves and the elves and the men all kind of cooperated. They realized we're all under attack now, so we need to cooperate. It all just happened so quickly in the book that it was just this big, just skirmish immediately. First you had the big, you had the worms, the monster worms from Tremors, show up and just make a cameo all of a sudden, and and then they were gone. I was like, how are they going to beat them? And then they're gone. So that was
they
a little
couldn't beat them, so they just disappeared.
Right. Have you seen Tremors?
No.
Oh, have you seen? You know what I'm talking about, Sharon? Tremors.
The worms.
What's that?
What was that? Sorry.
Have you seen the movie Tremors?
No.
The Kevin Bacon movie from the that one may not have made it over to Australia, but it's this movie.
No, I've seen Tremors as a movie.
Oh, you have seen Tremors.
Seen the movie.
Oh, you know of Tremors as a movie. I got you. Yeah. Well, anyway, they call them graboids, but it's basically these giant worms that come out of the.
I was wondering what those were.
And grab. Yeah. So that's not really what they were supposed to be, but it was just that was my joke.
That neither one of us appreciated.
Maybe two people listening to the podcast will get. So.
Okay. Well, there you
go.
It'll be worth it. If even just one person gets it.
But I was just they come out of the ground and, everybody's like, oh, crap. And then they're gone.
Yeah.
I guess they just wanted them to make holes in the ground so they could come through the side of the
mountain.
mountain.
Yeah, that makes sense. There was the bust through. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was confused by that, though. I didn't know what
There's lots of trolls, too. Lots more trolls than I remember being in
I like the trolls.
Oh, yeah, I like the trolls, too.
I like them way better than the orcs.
Yeah.
With their big jiggly bellies. They're funny little bad guys.
Well, the trolls in this one all looked like the one from the first Harry Potter movie to me. The one that's in the bathroom in Hogwarts. They looked really dumb.
More trolls.
What's that?
More trolls. There's some more troll action in the extended version.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I should watch it after all then.
More trolls.
I do like the trolls.
Yeah. Trolls greater than orcs.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
Can I ask about the battle?
sure.
So,
No.
okay. Because this is one of the things that confused me.
Go ahead.
Keely and Feely and Dwalin, they leave.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that in the book, do they? Do they separate? Okay.
No, like
where are they going?
So they
end up in like the icy tundra.
So they decide. I remember when I saw the movie in the theater the first time, I didn't understand what was like how they wound up there. I was
okay,
like,
this was my
on?
first time seeing it. So that explains
it. So basically, this is how Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, like they go up to. There's like this high viewpoint that Azog had like picked out to be like where he could control the battle from, and he was up there. Right. It was like an old watchtower or something like that, right?
Azog's the really white.
It was Ravenshill. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So that's where he was, and I think Bolg was up there with him too, and they were kind of like calling the shots right up there, right? And so Thorin sees him up there and is like, we got to go, cut the head off the snake, basically, right?
Okay. So they're trying to go up there to get Azog. That's why they went up there. Okay, and then there's this part where Toriel is trying to go after them, right? They show back up. And Toriel's trying to go after them, and then Thranduil shows up. And Toriel's like, don't you dare, blah, 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 whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in Dale.
That was in that. Okay.
Yep. So Thorin, cut the head off the snake. Was heading to Ravenhill. Now, there's a scene it was the extended version that explains how they got goats.
Okay.
Okay. So, I'm not going to spoil it because it is a ripper.
The pigs were already taken. The battle pigs were already taken.
Oh my god, it's great. Anyway, so they go up to that, and Thorin, Dwalin, Keely, and Feely are up at the base of Ravenhill, and they can see that he's across the lake, basically, or the river. And they can see that he's not there anymore, and that's when Feely and Keely get sent as scouts. At the same time as that's happening in Dale, Thranduil goes in, and then his gorgeous elk is killed, and he's fighting, and he says, right, I've had enough of this, we're out. So he's going to withdraw the elves. And Tauriel gets in his way and says, no, you don't. No.
Oh, okay.
You've got to stand here and fight because this is what is right. And they have a bit of a skirmish, and Legolas comes in and says, well, pretty much if you're going to kill her, you're going to have to go through me.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
So that is another thing there, and that's when Legolas and Tauriel go off and look to help Thorin, and that's when all the next bit happens. And this is really where the extended version tells you so much more about how that all comes together.
Okay.
Because when I watch the non-extended version now, I get confused too. So I totally
that makes
understand.
Me feel better.
Yeah.
Okay, so the interaction between Thranduil and Toriel, that was in Dale.
Yeah.
While the four dwarves are up on.
Yeah, a lot of things happen simultaneously, but you can't show that.
Sure, so. That makes sense. But then how does Toriel ends up, was it Ravenhill? Is that where the icy tundra?
Yeah.
She ends up there with the dwarves. Yeah. So she just follows after them? Well,
she goes looking for
Keely, right?
Keely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And gets tangled up with Bolg during the whole killing of Keely thing.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Up there, and Nicholas ends up dealing with Bolg prior to that.
Yeah.
And helping Thorin to get his sword back.
Mm-hmm.
It's very complicated.
It is very complicated. I had a very hard time following all of that. I was like, couldn't they all just stayed in one place and just fought the enemy? Like, why did we have
I want to see an aerial shot.
That's right.
Exactly.
I want the documentary version of the battle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like
I want to see how that all plans out. So, you can see, there's that 4 or 5 things going on at one time. And that's a bit like in the Lord of the Rings thing through, when you're cutting from the Sam and Frodo and Gollum story back to the Merry and Pippin story, back to the You know, all of the 3 little stories or 4 or 5 plots that are going on. And that's sort of what happens in this part of the movie where there's 3 or 4 or 5 things going on that you've got to sort of keep track of. And if you try and think of it as a across the board timeline rather than a chronological timeline, it makes it a little easier. But the extended version does shed more light on it.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah. Because, that's probably one of the reasons I thought it was too long. I was just getting tired of trying to follow it. And I was like, And I know Thorin does get killed fighting. It's the books that say he dies in battle with, is it Azog? Or
no,
is
it's with Bolg.
It's Bolg. Okay. So that was right.
Well,
but
he dies in battle with Azog in the movie.
Oh, see, that's why I was confused. Yeah. And it's not in the icy tundra, like it's on the battlefield.
Well, there's no like reference to. Well, it was like a iced over pond or something like that. But yeah.
But still up in Ravenhill, right?
At the top there, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Well, yeah. Oh no, yeah.
It wasn't part of the main.
I was
battle.
confused because I don't know if he killed on Ravenhill in the book. I can't remember, but
you said it was glossed over, so we don't know.
It's not a. We don't see it. We just hear.
Right. We just hear that he died.
That he basically received a mortal wound in the battle, right, and then he dies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So they dragged that out, and kind of.
Yeah, and I think I don't have a problem with them showing like that battle in the movie. Like to me, like that's it happened. Like so they they.
Well, technically,
it's
it was
fine.
just the wrong word.
Well, yeah. Thorin died in battle, and so I'm cool with that. Like I got no issues with that showing up in the film. Is an active thing now. Bilbo doesn't get hit with the rock. He just like.
Yeah, I didn't like that. The whole thing with the eagles, I really didn't like.
I felt like the eagles got short shrift.
They totally got short end of the stick.
See, the birds being done over again. He's not happy.
He's not.
It was the birds. Like the birds did not get done.
They
right
showed up
movie.
way too late.
Yeah,
way too late. Like the battle was basically over by the time they showed up.
Well, the Guldur bats had just turned up, so
Yeah,
that birds came in.
What?
Well, I don't know.
The bats from Gundabad
in
the movie.
Oh, the second. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It just felt too late to me. I wanted them earlier.
Well, the bats are like one of the first things in the book, right? They're one of the first things in the battle.
Right, but then the eagles show up right after the bats in the movie.
Right.
I remember thinking the bats were the eagles at first.
The bats come in late in the movie.
In the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the eagles show up right after that, and then I did like the Beorn para dropping into just jumping off the eagle right into battle, like transforming in midair into the Beorn bear, right?
He got shortchanged too.
He did. I was
Big
like,
time.
man,
yeah,
such an awesome character. I think that was something we said about Desolation of Smaug too. Is like such an awesome character, and like you could have done so much more with Beorn. Like just show Beorn, just like give him 5 minutes to just kill orcs. Like like I mean, what a cool character, and we see him jump off and he goes crazy and for about 5 seconds and then no more Beorn. He even gets to walk back. They spend Christmas.
Yeah. There was no time
at Beorn's house.
Is that in the extended edition, Sharon? Do they have Yuletide at Beorn's? No. That's disappointing.
I'm like, I want to spend Yuletide at Beorn's.
I want to spend Yuletide at Beorn's too.
I've been to the movie site, but that's as far as I've got.
You've been to where?
Been to the movie site for Beorn's house.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's cool.
They've got that too out there. Huh?
That's part of Hobbiton.
Well, it's across a field. You can see it. You can see where it's. You can see the shape of the trees and all of that.
So it's not. It's not actually over a giant mountain range or anything like that. It's just right across a field.
It's ironically near Caradhras, but that's just not right. So. It's like I was saying last time. All the movie sets are, within feet of each other in kilometers in the books.
Mm-hmm.
The deception of film, making it all seem so vast.
Wide angle lenses and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so, and then we get to the goodbye to Thorin, Fili and Keely, like, they're gone. Like, I was, honestly, even though I'd seen it before, I was kind of shocked that there wasn't more of a, long goodbye between Tauriel and Keely. It's really, I actually kind of liked, even though I was a little bit iffy on the whole, like, the whole romance, I was like, I like that they didn't just drag it out like, oh, Keely, you can't die, and all this kind of, like that. There's just like it's in battle, and she's like, no, like, and he's dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have the long like, I'm dying, goodbye, these are my final words to you. Like I was like,
no.
Okay, I appreciate like you didn't try to do that. So anyway.
Yeah. That's funny that you say that, because I don't know. There was something about that scene that bugged me. I don't know what it was.
Well, and then Feely like just,
I don't know, he was just
you're dead.
Gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no love lost there.
Yeah, know how you doing, get out. It's gone.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. That was dramatic.
Yeah, Thorin was the only one that got the they got the dramatic drawn out death scene.
And it's really his own stupid fault. I mean, he's just gonna stand there and watch the guy float by under the ice. Like
I always thought that was stupid.
Yeah, it was creepy when his eyes popped open.
But I mean, otherwise, how would he have had the whole end of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know it drives me nuts every time I watch it. See.
Come on, man.
Come on.
Because it's like, for God's sake, you put him into a cold, watery death. Just walk away, dude. You got other people you could be killing, but no.
Right. He stands there and watches.
Gloat over his handiwork.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta watch him. You gotta just wait for him to stab your foot.
He got greedy.
Man.
Yeah.
He did.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, too much gloating.
Yeah.
Well, then we got the journey home.
Yeah.
I mean,
is that it?
That's pretty much it, I think. Am I missing anything?
They don't do Thorin's funeral.
No, there's not.
They do in the extended one.
Extended
they do.
version.
Okay. All right. Well, there's not a whole lot to that in the book. So.
No.
I mean so basically the things that they miss out on the journey home, he basically devotes like a chapter and a half to the journey home, right? And then Bilbo gets back, and I think I will tell you I was disappointed we didn't get Yuletide at Beorn's, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they need to get everybody back together and do a Christmas special, Yuletide at Beorn's. Like the 5th anniversary Christmas special, Yuletide at Beorn's.
I love it.
That's perfect.
Jackson immediately.
I agree.
Just as long as I get credit for the idea, and he pays me a lot of money for it. All right.
And lets you help cast.
That's right. Fund the podcast for till Kingdom Come. So there's Yuletide at Beorn's, and we don't get to see that, and then they do spend a little time at Rivendell.
In Rivendell, that's not in there either.
Not there. And then I was kind of disappointed that Balin didn't get to come.
Yes,
didn't get to show up, and
agree.
at the very end, and they weren't smoking pipes there, and and I can't remember what Gandalf said to him when they part ways right at the edge of the Shire, but I know it was a twist on what Gandalf says in the book at the very end when Balin is there. The whole thing about
just a little hobbit in the
in a
wild world.
I love that final scene in the book,
Yeah.
and I just wish they had done that in the movie. Like I wish that had been the final scene of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that was my biggest complaint. I wanted a shorter battle, and I feel like it started too sudden and it ended too sudden.
Mm-hmm.
There was not enough denouement or whatever. What's that thing? Denouement. I wanted a little bit of that more at the beginning, and I wanted that at the end. Mm-hmm. And I felt the battle was too long and the journey home was too short.
Yeah.
That's my biggest complaint. Because, I really wanted to see all that. I wanted to see Rivendell. I wanted to see Bjorn's. I wanted the visit with Balin. I thought they handled the possessions, about his possessions getting auctioned off. I thought they did a good job with that. Yeah. That was funny.
Yeah.
But, I just felt the ending was just too sudden for me.
Yeah.
What about you, Sharon?
Well, I don't really have any major complaints. Like I said, Battle 5 Armies extended version is longer and a lot more fun than the shorter version. And I agree that the journey home could have been a little better. I'm, not fussed either way about what it was, but I think maybe a little glimpse, little snippets, like 10 or 15 second snippets of different things that they did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he went back and dug up the troll treasure and all of those sorts of little bits and pieces.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those little details went lacking, I think, in the end.
Yeah.
There, and I think the way it finished was to tie it to how it's the very first of the three started, which was Bilbo writing the story.
Right.
And it wasn't the day of his birthday. So for the Lord of the Rings. So it was just, it had to be tied back to the start of the trilogy.
Yeah.
That tied to the next trilogy. So I think that was done well. And I particularly love the way that, you know, Bilbo's sort of, he's standing there and he's a bit fidgety, and he's sort of got the ring in his hand, and he opens his hand and he looks at it, and when it comes back to his face, it's old Bilbo. I think that's lovely. I think that tied it really well together. And then Gandalf knocks on his door.
Right. So and it's like the beginning of the Fellowship movie. At that point.
It's that complete circle thing that movies need to do.
Yeah.
You know,
good point.
You know, all of the things that were missing, again, is choice, and it's about, you know, providing the viewer with the continuation of the story, and all of the editorial additions. I think, again, like I think I said last time, about giving people another opportunity to go, well, what was that all about? I need to find out, and go off and read Tolkien's work. Because ultimately, that's the side effect of all of this. The very positive side effect is that we're going to get more people of a younger generation, and get them coming through to read it as well, and sharing it with kids, and getting the art of reading back on task. So, you know, for me, I love them. I love them the way they are. I'm sure that Peter Jackson looks back and goes, oh, I could have done that better. And maybe he'll sit down in a few years and try and rewrite it the same as Tolkien did. Oh. I don't know.
That could be interesting.
Well, you know, it'll be... you know, I even as we were talking about The Hobbit as the book, I just felt, as much as I love the book, it's not a perfect book, and there's a lot, like there's it's wonderful, it's a great book, but it's not perfect. It's not perfect to me, like some people would argue that Lord of the Rings isn't perfect, and I'm just like, but
everyone's entitled to their opinion.
We've established that.
There are some opinions that,
Stop
so,
now.
That's right.
Stop.
I'm just being silly.
I know you are.
I started a podcast on Tolkien. Come on, you know,
No.
all because of Lord of the Rings. So all I'm trying to say is that I really wish that Tolkien would have done his rewrite of The Hobbit and the longer version, because I do think there's so much more of the story that could have been told, and it's fun to think about. And so, on one level, I salute Jackson for going through the process of making the movie, and trying to maybe envision it out to a larger scale than it is in the book. I definitely have my things that I take issue with, but at the end of the day, I'm always just kind of like, it's really hard to complain about being able to just spend 2.5 hours in Middle Earth, in any regard.
Yes, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
I think
at the bottom of it all, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
agree.
I may like some of the movies better than the others, but I mean, it's hard to complain about, like, being able to spend 2.5 hours just like turn off all the lights and just watch Middle Earth. Right? That's cool. So salute to Peter Jackson in that way.
Well said.
Yeah.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else? Any final thoughts?
No, just thank you for the opportunity to be involved in this project. I mean, it's fantastic, and I certainly hope that I can support you further.
Well, we love having you. It's been fun.
if you ever want me in on something, let me know, and by all means, I'll make the time, day or night.
Right on.
That's great. We love it.
Love it. That'd be really good. And if you're thinking about coming over to Australia, let me know.
Okay.
We'll see what we can do. And certainly if you're going to New Zealand, let me know. I can certainly help you out there.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Definitely on our list.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thanks for joining us. And
I've loved it. Loved every second.
These last couple of movie episodes.
Yeah,
it's been fun.
It's been very, very fun.
And
I really enjoyed your perspective, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you. Thank you to everybody who's listening and who's been on this journey with us through not just The Hobbit, but through Lord of the Rings, through the Silmarillion. And I'm looking forward to what the future holds for us.
Yeah,
and really excited to see more Middle Earth come into the big screen, come into screens, right, and high def and all that good stuff. And hopefully not too distant future with the Amazon TV show. But just so much more Tolkien to talk about. So, it's that's the wonderful thing about our favorite author here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
sure is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk at you next time.
Yeah. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Tolkien Road wishes to thank our patrons, Al Taylor, Andrew Herbert, Andrew Thomas, Azia Weiner, Bethany Engler, Brendan Corkery, Brian Orr, Kat Lane, Chris Loftus, Chuck Farnone, Connor Fogarty, Daniel Delaney, David Bates, David Bigwood, Emilio Perea, Eric Bissett, Hunter Johns, Ish of the Hammer, James Applegate, James Lindberg, Joe Towns, John Rice, Josh Sosa, Margaret Lyon, Matt Scarrance, Robert Franks, Sarah Murphy, Shannon Stockbridge, Teresa Colangelo, Travis Lougheed, Ty Miller, Dr. William Hutton, and Zeke Farmer. To learn more about becoming a patron, head on over to patreon.com/TolkienRoad. Thanks for listening.